Tug Fionn Mac Cumhaill an Alpha. What on earth does that mean? This means that today we're going to be talking about the Giants Causeway. As you can tell, I'm still ill, but we'll carry on regardless. Now I could talk to you about how the Giants Causeway is a large area of about 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, the result of an ancient volcanic fissure eruption, and it's located in County Antrim in the north coast of today's Northern Ireland, about 3 miles northeast of the town of Bushmills. About 50 to 60 million years ago, during the Paleocene, Antrim was subject to intense volcanic activity, where highly fluid molten basalt intruded through chalk beds to form an extensive volcanic plateau known as the Fionn Plateau. And that is all well and good, but what about the cultural history? How did the people of Ireland see this majestic scenery? And that is exactly what this video is about today, because we're going to look at the story of how the Giants Causeway got its name. Well, that story starts with 2 giants, the Irish giant, Fionn Mac Cumhaill, and the Scottish giant, Bínandóna, also known as the Red Man. Now, overall, in Irish mythology, Fionn Mac Cumhaill isn't actually a giant. He's actually a hero with supernatural abilities, even though this particular legend says he's a giant. In fairy and folk tales of Irish peasantry, written in 1888, it's noted that over time, pagan gods of Ireland ended up growing smaller and smaller in the popular imagination until they turned into the fairies, and the pagan heroes grew bigger and bigger until they turned into giants and gods. There's no surviving pre-Christian stories about the Giants Causeway, but it may originally have been associated with the Fomorians, or the Nufawi. Another name for the stones are the stepping stones of the Nufawi. The Nufawi are a race of mythological beings in Irish mythology who are sometimes described as giants, and they may have originally been part of a pre-Christian pantheon. So this Scottish giant and Fionn Mac Cumhaill often shouted at each other, insulted each other, exchanged heated words. Their voices echoed across the waters. It wasn't long before the feud escalated to the point that Fionn Mac Cumhaill challenged the Red Man to a duel, a task that necessitated the construction of a pathway, which is now known as the Giants Causeway. He picked up stones from Antrim and threw them into the sea to create this path to Scotland. However, as he reached the Scottish shore, Fionn realised that the Red Man, or Bínandóna, was so much bigger than him. He was colossal. And overwhelmed and frightened, he retreated back to Ireland, running with the Red Man very close behind him. Legend says that during this hasty escape, Fionn lost a boot, and that remains at a Giant's Causeway to this day. With his strong, manly warrior spirit shaken, Fionn turned to his wife, who wrapped him in a sheet and disguised him as a baby and tucked him into a bathtub. Bínandóna soon turned up at their door and was greeted by his wife, who excused her husband's absence, saying that he'd suddenly gone on a deer hunt in County Kerry. She led the giant on the tour of their home, showcasing Fionn's massive weapons, and served a meal of griddle bread, but had baked an iron griddle inside it, which caused the Red Man to lose some teeth. When Bínandóna requested to see their child, he was terrified by the gigantic size of this baby that we know is just Fionn dressed up in a sheet. He was freaked out, thinking, if the baby's this big, how big is Fionn? And so, after seeing the size of the baby, he ran all the way back to Scotland, destroying the causeway on his way back. So that's why it doesn't link all the way to Scotland. As Bínandóna ran away, it's said that Fionn then picked up more chunks of Antrim to throw at him as a warning to never set foot on Irish soil again. The thrown piece fell midway and as a result formed the Isle of Man. The void left behind, which filled with water, forms Loch there, which is a lake in Northern Ireland. In a more gruesome, gory version, Finn, when he's dressed up as the baby, actually bites off Bean Donna's middle finger and drains him of his strength, which is another reason why he is meant to have run away back to Scotland. Although through quite a few different versions of this story, they always seem to change which one of his wives are actually in the story. Some name his most famous wife Siv, others state it's his wife Una, although this man had a lot of wives and lovers. There is actually a less known story that I found that's like an alternative version, and it was only really told via the Causeway guides during tours in like the 1700s and early 1800s. It's how Finn built the causeway for love rather than to fight a man. And it goes like this. Finn had fallen in love with a Scottish maiden. Sad that he couldn't reach her, he walked along the shore, skimming stones out across the sea. Seeing the splash they made, Finn suddenly hit upon a plan. He would build a causeway in order to seek his love. Finn laboured all day and made a good progress in his task, extending the causeway nearly halfway across the sea. Tired, he went home to rest, confident he would finish the job the next day. But sadly, his grandmother had other ideas. Afraid of losing him forever to Scotland, she used her magic to call up an enormous storm. The waves and wind lashed the partly built causeway, and the rocks were torn apart. Finn awoke the next day to see his handiwork had disappeared. Undaunted though, he began to build a new causeway. Once more the stones stretched out into the ocean, but that very night his work was destroyed. Finn tried again and again. The harder he laboured, the more violent the storms. Worn out, he made one last attempt, building on through the night. The storms rose up around Finn, tearing at him with thunder and lightning, while wild waves beat at every rock he tried to lift. At last he reached the other side, but the trial was too much, even for a giant. Exhausted, he fell down and died in the arms of his beloved. Behind him, the causeway he had built slipped below the waves for a final time. A mighty thunderclap sounded, and Finn's grandmother climbed to the top of a hill to see what had happened. Horrified by what her magic had done, she turned to stone, and stands there to this day. If you visit the Giants Causeway, look to the west of Port Ganny, which is the bay before the Little Causeway. You can see the stooped figure of the grandmother heading up to the Stoken's headland frozen in stone. If you go to Port Noffa, you can also see the boot that Fionn Mac Cumhaill was meant to have lost on his way back to Ireland after being chased by Bean Donna. And that's the story or stories of the Giants Causeway. A little bit of a twist on the history, showing some of the stories of the area, which I think adds to the area as a whole. History isn't always just the hard facts of this time and this date and this place, especially when it comes to large formations like the Causeway. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully part of the next one I will have reclaimed my voice properly, but please don't forget to share, like and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!